My husband struck me in front of his mother. What she did next stunned everyone. The slap came while I was setting down the casserole dish. His palm connected with my face hard enough that I bit my tongue. We were in their dining room for Sunday dinner. His mother Diane was pouring wine. His father Gerald sat at the head of the table. The room went silent. I stood there with my hand on my burning cheek, waiting. Bennett had hit me dozens of times over our 4-year marriage, but never in front of witnesses. I'd convinced myself that if anyone ever saw, they'd help me. Diane set down the wine bottle. She walked over and looked at Bennett with mild irritation. Really? At the dinner table? Son, you know your mother doesn't like scenes during meals. Can't you wait until you get home? Gerald said. 4 years I'd been part of this family, and they'd known the whole time what Bennett was. She embarrassed me in front of my colleagues, Bennett said. Someone needs to teach her how to behave. I started backing toward the door. Bennett raised his hand again. Where do you think you're going? That's when Diane did something that genuinely shocked me. She pulled out her phone and started taking photos. Flash after flash, my face. Bennett's raised hand, the red mark across my cheek. Mom, what are you doing? Bennett lowered his hand. Documenting, she said calmly. For the lawyer. Gerald set down his fork. Bennett looked confused. What lawyer? Diane looked directly at me. Honey, do you need help? Yes. Good. She walked to the sideboard and pulled out an envelope. There's $18,000 in here. Cash. She pressed it into my hands. There's a silver Honda parked 3 blocks north. Keys are taped under the rear wheel well. I bought it cash 2 years ago. The title's in the envelope. Mom, you can't be serious. Bennett's voice rose. I'm completely serious. I've been planning this since your second wife left in the middle of the night. Second wife? You're number 3, Diane said quietly. The first one was too scared to press charges. The second one I convinced not to involve police. I've regretted that every day since. She looked at her son with disgust. I'm not making that mistake again. Bennett moved toward me, but Gerald caught his arm. Don't make this worse. Witnesses. I'm testifying. I've been keeping a journal for 6 years. She pulled a small notebook from her pocket. Dates, times, direct quotes, everything. You're my mother, Bennett said, genuinely hurt. And she's someone's daughter. Diane's voice cracked. I didn't protect the others. I chose you because you're my son and I was a coward. But the first wife contacted me last month. She tried to kill herself. She ended up in intensive care because I convinced her no one would believe her. I gripped the envelope. Go now, Diane said firmly. There's an address inside with the title. Someone is waiting to help you. Don't go back to your house. Throw away your phone as soon as you're on the highway. Why now? I whispered. Because the first wife didn't make it. Diane's eyes filled with tears. She died this morning, and I'm not going to let my silence kill anyone else. She opened the door. Go. Now. I ran. I sprinted 3 blocks north until I found the silver Honda. My hands shook as I felt under the wheel well for the keys. They were there. I locked myself inside and started the engine. As I pulled away, I opened the envelope to find the address. But there was something else inside. A second phone, and a note in Diane's handwriting. This phone has evidence on it that will destroy Bennett's life. I couldn't turn in my own son, but maybe you can. I drove for 2 hours before I pulled into a gas station and threw my phone in the dumpster. My hands were still shaking. The second phone sat on the passenger seat like a bomb. I didn't turn it on yet. Couldn't. The address led to a small house in Pennsylvania, 4 hours from where I started. It was past midnight when I pulled into the driveway. The porch light flicked on immediately. A woman opened the door before I could knock. You must be number 3, she said, not unkindly. I'm Chloe. I know. Diane told me you might come. She stepped aside. I'm Vanessa. I was number 2. Inside, the house was warm and clean. Photos of 2 young girls covered the mantel. Vanessa saw me looking. My daughters. They're with my mom tonight. We sat at her kitchen table. She made tea I didn't drink. How long were you with him? She asked. 4 years. She nodded. I lasted 6. The first wife, Natalie, made it 8. Diane said she died. Pills. On purpose. Vanessa stared into her mug. She called me 3 weeks ago. Said she couldn't do it anymore. The nightmares, the panic attacks. I tried to help, but I was barely holding it together myself. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Be angry. She looked up. Did Diane give you the phone? I pulled it from my pocket. What's on it? Everything. Videos, bank records, medical reports. Diane's been collecting evidence for years. She just couldn't bring herself to use it. Vanessa's jaw tightened. She chose him over us. Over Natalie. And now Natalie's dead. I turned on the phone. The battery was at 82%. No passcode. The first video made me sick. Bennett hitting someone I didn't recognize. The camera angle suggested it was hidden, maybe in a clock or a picture frame. The timestamp was from 6 years ago. That's Natalie, Vanessa said quietly. Diane hid cameras in their house. Bennett never knew. There were dozens of videos. Bennett shoving Vanessa downstairs. Bennett breaking Natalie's wrist. Bennett screaming at all of us. His face red with rage. His fists connecting with soft flesh again and again. I had to stop watching after the 5th one. There's more, Vanessa said. Financial stuff. He's been embezzling from his company for years. Diane has all the proof. Why didn't she turn him in? Because he's her son, and Gerald protects him. They're both lawyers. They know exactly how to make problems disappear. She leaned forward. But now Natalie's dead, and Diane can't live with herself anymore. I scrolled through the bank records. Bennett had stolen over $300,000. The paper trail was meticulous. Diane had documented everything. What am I supposed to do with this? Whatever you want. Give it to the police. Give it to his company. Post it online. Diane said it's your choice now. Vanessa paused. She also said if you need help, call her lawyer. There's a number in the contacts. I found the contact. Just a name. Judith Kolb. She's good, Vanessa said. Specializes in domestic violence cases. Diane's been paying her retainer for 2 years. Just waiting. I looked at Vanessa. Really looked at her. She had scars. Small ones around her hairline. A crooked finger that had healed wrong. Why are you helping me? Because no one helped me. Because Natalie's dead and I'm barely alive. Her voice cracked. Because maybe if I can help you, it'll mean something. I stayed at Vanessa's house that night. She gave me the guest room. I didn't sleep. Just stared at the phone in my hands. Watching video after video. My husband. My life. Everything documented in perfect clarity. By morning, I'd made a decision. I called Judith Kolb at 8 a.m. She answered on the second ring. This is Judith. Diane gave me your number. I'm Bennett's wife. Current wife. Silence. Then, are you safe? Yes. I'm at Vanessa's. Good, don't leave. I'll be there in 3 hours. She arrived in 2. Judith was in her 50s. Gray hair pulled back, sharp eyes. She carried a leather briefcase and moved with purpose. Show me what you have. I handed her the phone. She watched 2 videos, then stopped. This is more than enough for criminal charges. Multiple felonies. What about the embezzlement? Federal crime. His company will press charges the moment they see this. She looked up. Do you understand what happens when we start this? Bennett will fight back. His parents will protect him. It gets ugly. Natalie's dead. I know. Judith's expression softened. I represented her for a week before Diane convinced her to drop the case. I've regretted that for 6 years. Then let's make sure it means something. We spent the next 3 days planning. Judith contacted the police, Bennett's company, and started filing paperwork. Restraining orders, divorce papers, criminal complaints. On day 4, Bennett found out. Vanessa's home phone rang at 6 a.m. She answered, listened, then hung up pale. That was Diane. Bennett knows you're here. He's on his way. How? Gerald hired investigators. They tracked the Honda. Judith was already packing her briefcase. We need to move you. Now. No. I stood up. I'm done running. Chloe, he's dangerous. I know. I was married to him for 4 years. I looked at the phone. But now I have proof and police protection. Let him come. Judith made calls. Within an hour, 2 police cars were parked outside. When Bennett's black Mercedes pulled up, officers were already on the lawn. He got out slowly, saw the police, stopped. I walked onto the porch, met his eyes. You can't do this, he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. I'm your husband, not for long. My mother betrayed me. My own mother. She chose Natalie's memory over your future. I think that took courage. Bennett's face went red, the same expression I'd seen before every beating. You stupid bitch. Do you have any idea what I'll do to you? Sir, I need you to step back. One officer moved between us. She's my wife. This is a family matter. Sir, there's a restraining order. You need to leave. Bennett looked at me with pure hatred. This isn't over. But it was. The police escorted him to his car, made him drive away. I watched until his Mercedes disappeared around the corner. My hands weren't shaking anymore. The next week moved fast. Bennett was arrested at work. The videos went public when his company filed charges. Local news picked up the story. 3 wives, years of abuse, massive embezzlement. Bennett's perfect reputation shattered in 48 hours. Diane called me once. Her voice was hollow. I'm sorry I didn't do this sooner. Why now? I asked again. Because I finally understood. I wasn't protecting my son. I was enabling a monster. She paused. Gerald left me. He said I destroyed our family. You saved lives. Maybe. But it cost me everything. She hung up before I could respond. The trial took 8 months. Bennett's lawyers fought hard. Gerald paid for the best defense money could buy. But the videos were undeniable. The bank records were perfect. Diane's journal was devastating. In the end, Bennett got 18 years, 6 for assault, 12 for embezzlement, consecutive sentences. I sat in the courtroom and watched him led away in handcuffs. He didn't look at me, didn't look at anyone. After, Judith took me for coffee. How do you feel? Empty. That's normal. You've been running on adrenaline for months. Natalie's still dead. Yes, but you're alive, and Bennett can't hurt anyone else. She stirred her coffee. That has to count for something. I moved to Oregon after the trial, started over, got a job at a bookstore, rented a tiny apartment with a good lock, went to therapy twice a week. Vanessa called me every Sunday. We'd talk for hours, about healing, about moving forward, about the nightmares that still woke us both at 3 a.m. Do they ever stop? I asked her once. Not completely, but they get quieter. 6 months after Bennett went to prison, I got a letter from Diane. It was long, pages of apologies and explanations. She'd left Gerald, moved to Florida, started volunteering at a women's shelter. The last paragraph stuck with me. I can't undo the damage I caused. Can't bring Natalie back. Can't erase the years you and Vanessa suffered. But I can make sure other mothers don't make my mistake. That other sons don't become what Bennett became. It's not enough. It will never be enough. But it's all I have left to give. I wrote back. Not to forgive her. I wasn't ready for that. Maybe I'd never be ready. But to tell her I understood why she finally acted. And that understanding wasn't the same as absolution. But it was something. A year later, I enrolled in community college, criminal justice. I wanted to understand the system that had failed Natalie, the system that had almost failed me. During my second semester, I got a call from Judith. There's someone who wants to meet you. Who? Natalie's mother. We met at a coffee shop. Helen was in her 60s, gray hair, tired eyes. She ordered tea, but didn't drink it. Thank you for stopping him, she said quietly. I'm sorry I couldn't save Natalie. No one could. She was too broken. Helen's hand shook. But you made sure he paid. That matters. We sat in silence for a while. Then Helen reached into her purse and pulled out a photo. A young woman with dark hair and bright eyes. This was Natalie before Bennett. She was studying to be a teacher. She loved children, wanted 6 of her own. I looked at the photo. Tried to imagine that vibrant woman as the hollow-eyed person in Diane's videos. Bennett took that from her, Helen said. Took everything. And when she couldn't bear it anymore, she chose to leave permanently. Her voice cracked. I'm her mother. I was supposed to protect her. You didn't know. I knew something was wrong. She stopped visiting, stopped calling, made excuses. I should have pushed harder, should have seen the signs. Helen wiped her eyes. Don't make my mistake. If someone you love is suffering, don't let them convince you they're fine. I took Helen's number, promised to call. I did, every month. We'd talk about Natalie, about healing, about the weight of guilt that never goes away. 2 years after Bennett's sentencing, Vanessa called. I'm getting married. What? When? Next month. Small ceremony. Just family and a few friends. She paused. I want you there. You and Judith. And Helen. Does Helen know? I called her last week. She cried for an hour, then said yes. The wedding was beautiful. Simple. Vanessa wore a cream dress and smiled like I'd never seen her smile before. Her new husband, Fletcher, looked at her like she was precious, fragile, and strong at once. During the reception, the 4 of us sat together. Vanessa, Helen, Judith, and me. An unlikely family built from tragedy. To Natalie, Helen said, raising her glass. Who deserved better? To Natalie, we echoed. I graduated with my associate degree 3 years after leaving Bennett. Got accepted into a bachelor's program. Decided to become a victim's advocate. During my internship, I met a woman who reminded me of myself. Her name was Piper. She'd left her abusive partner 2 weeks ago and was living in a shelter. I don't know what to do, she said. I have no money, no job, nowhere to go. I sat across from her. Remembered sitting in Vanessa's kitchen, remembered Diane's envelope of cash, remembered Judith's determined expression. You start small, I told her, one day at a time, and you let people help you. I don't know if I can, neither did I, but you find strength you didn't know you had. I helped Piper file a restraining order, connected her with Judith's law firm, helped her find a job and an apartment, checked in every week. 6 months later, Piper called me. I got into nursing school. That's amazing. I couldn't have done it without you. Yes, you could have. You just needed someone to believe you could. After we hung up, I thought about Diane, about how she'd finally chosen to help, about how one person's action could change everything. I called her for the first time since she'd moved to Florida. She answered cautiously. Chloe, I wanted to tell you something. Silence. I help women leave now. Women like me, like Natalie and Vanessa. And every time I help someone, I think about what you did, how you finally chose to act. I paused. It wasn't enough to save Natalie, and I'm still angry about that, but it saved me, and through me, it's saving others. I heard her crying. Thank you. I'm not forgiving you. I might never forgive you, but I want you to know that your choice mattered. We didn't talk long, and we didn't talk often after that, but something shifted. The weight of anger got a little lighter. On the 5-year anniversary of leaving Bennett, I drove to the cemetery where Natalie was buried. Helen had told me where it was. I stood at her grave, read her name carved in stone, Natalie Ann Reeves, born 1988, died 2021. I'm sorry, I said to the cold marble. I'm sorry no one saved you in time. The wind picked up. Rain started to fall. But I promise you, every woman I help, every life I change, it's because of you. Your suffering wasn't meaningless. It changed everything. I left flowers, white roses. Helen had said they were Natalie's favorite. Bennett tried to appeal his sentence. Failed. Tried again. Failed again. His lawyers stopped returning Gerald's calls. His perfect life stayed shattered. I didn't think about him much anymore. He was just a chapter I'd closed. A nightmare I'd survived. Diane sent me updates sometimes. About the shelter she volunteered at. About the women she helped. About her therapy and her guilt and her small attempts at redemption. I read her letters. Sometimes I responded. Sometimes I didn't. 7 years after I left, I got my bachelor's degree. Judith came to my graduation. So did Vanessa and Fletcher. Helen sat in the front row and cried. After the ceremony, we went to dinner, celebrated, laughed, made plans for the future. You should write about this, Judith said. Your story. Everything that happened. I don't know. Other women need to hear it. Need to know they can survive. That there's life after. I thought about it for weeks. Started writing, stopped, started again. The words came slowly at first, then faster. Everything poured out. The fear, the pain, the escape, the aftermath. I wrote about Bennett and Diane and Gerald, about Natalie and Vanessa and Helen, about Judith and Piper and all the women I'd helped. I wrote about the system that failed us, the people who looked away, the small acts of courage that changed everything. When I finished, I had 300 pages. My whole story, raw and honest and painful. I sent it to Judith first. She called me 2 hours later. Publish this. Women need to read this. But I was scared. Scared of Bennett reading it from prison. Scared of Gerald coming after me. Scared of the world knowing every terrible detail. Fear is how they control us, Judith said. Even after we leave, don't let him take your voice. I submitted my manuscript to small publishers. Got rejected 15 times. The feedback was always the same. Too dark, too depressing. No one wants to read about abuse. Then a small press in Seattle said yes. The book came out a year later. After Bennett, one woman's escape from domestic violence. Sales were slow at first. Then a blogger reviewed it, called it essential reading. The review went viral. Within a month, I was doing interviews. Local news, national podcasts, women's magazines. Every interview, I mentioned Natalie. Made sure people knew her name. made sure her death meant something. The book hit bestseller lists. Women reached out by the hundreds, sharing their stories, thanking me for giving them hope. But Bennett saw it too. I got a letter from his prison. Short, vicious. You destroyed my life, turned everyone against me, made me look like a monster. I hope you're proud of yourself. I showed it to Judith. She frowned. He still doesn't get it. Still thinks he's the victim. Will he ever? Probably not. People like Bennett don't have that kind of insight. I threw the letter away. Didn't respond. He didn't deserve my words. But Gerald did come after me, sued for defamation, said the book portrayed his family falsely, damaged their reputation. The lawsuit was expensive, stressful. It dragged on for months. But I had the videos, the journal, all of Diane's evidence. Gerald's lawyers withdrew the suit when they saw what we had. He was hoping you'd back down, Judith explained. When you didn't, he realized he'd lose. After the lawsuit ended, I got a call from Diane. I'm sorry, I didn't know Gerald would do that. Did you try to stop him? I did, he wouldn't listen. Then, you have nothing to apologize for. I have everything to apologize for. We talked for 2 hours. Really talked. About guilt and redemption and whether either of us would ever feel whole again. I don't sleep well, Diane admitted. I see Natalie's face, hear her voice. She haunts me. Good, I said. Not cruelly. She should. Do you think I'll ever forgive myself? I don't know. Does it matter? Yes. Then keep working, keep helping, keep trying to balance the scales. Maybe that's all any of us can do. The book led to speaking engagements. I traveled to colleges and conferences, told my story again and again. One evening after a talk, a young woman approached me. She was crying. My boyfriend hit me last week. I didn't know what to do. Then I read your book. Did you leave? Yes, 2 days ago. I'm staying with my sister. Good. Stay gone. I'm scared. He's calling constantly, showing up at my work. I gave her Judith's number, connected her with resources, helped her file a restraining order. 3 months later, she sent me a photo, her new apartment. A fresh start. Thank you for showing me it was possible, she wrote. That became my purpose, showing women it was possible, that survival was real, that there was life after. 10 years after leaving Bennett, I opened my own nonprofit, Natalie's House, a shelter for domestic violence survivors. We provided housing, legal help, counseling, job training. Helen cut the ribbon at our opening. She was 71 now, but her eyes were bright. Natalie would have loved this. Diane donated money, a substantial amount. I almost refused it. Almost. Let me help, she'd said. It's the only thing I can do. So I took it, built an addition, named it the Diane Wing. Not to honor her, but to remind everyone. Even people who enabled abuse could choose to change, could choose to help. Vanessa came to work for me, ran our counseling program. She was perfect for it, understood the trauma, knew how to help women heal. Fletcher supported her completely, volunteered on weekends, helped with repairs and paperwork, proved that good men existed. Judith joined our board, provided pro bono legal services, connected us with other lawyers who wanted to help. We helped 50 women the first year, then 100, then 200. Every woman who walked through our doors got safety, got resources, got someone who believed them. I met with each one personally, looked them in the eye, said, "You're not crazy, you're not making it up, and you deserve better." Some left their abusers. Some went back, some left and returned and left again. I learned not to judge, learned that leaving was complicated. That trauma made simple choices impossible, but I was there every time, ready to help when they were ready to leave, for good. One woman, Astrid, returned 4 times. Each time we took her in, no questions, no judgment. The 5th time, she stayed. Why now? I asked her. Because I finally believed I deserved more. That's what it always came down to. Belief in yourself, in the possibility of something better. Bennett came up for parole after 12 years. Helen, Vanessa, and I attended the hearing, gave victim impact statements. I told the board about the years of abuse, about Natalie's death, about the hundreds of women we'd helped at Natalie's house who had similar stories. Bennett hasn't shown remorse, I said, hasn't acknowledged what he did. He's only served 2/3 of his sentence. Letting him out now sends a message that violence against women doesn't matter. The board denied his parole. Gerald attended the hearing, glared at me the entire time. When it was over, he approached me in the parking lot. "You happy now?" He spat. "You've destroyed my son's life. Your son destroyed his own life. And mine. And Natalie's." She was weak, couldn't handle a real man. I looked at this man who had raised a monster, who had protected and enabled him for decades, who still couldn't see the truth. Natalie was strong enough to survive 8 years of your son's abuse. You're just not strong enough to admit you raised him to be violent. Gerald's face turned purple. For a moment, I thought he might hit me, but Judith appeared at my side. "Is there a problem?" Gerald backed off, muttered something under his breath, walked away. I never saw him again. He died 2 years later. Heart attack. Diane didn't attend the funeral. He never apologized, she told me over the phone. Never admitted he was wrong. Died still believing Bennett was the victim. I'm sorry. Don't be. I mourned the man I thought I married years ago. The man who died last week was a stranger. Diane moved back north after Gerald's death, bought a small house near Natalie's house. Started volunteering regularly. At first, the other survivors didn't know who she was. Just a nice older woman who helped with donations and paperwork. Then one recognized her from news coverage of Bennett's trial. Word spread quickly. Some women refused to work with her. Couldn't get past what she'd enabled. I understood, but others were moved by her story. By how she'd finally chosen to act. By how she'd lost everything trying to make it right. She made a terrible mistake, one survivor told me, but she's spending her life trying to fix it. That takes courage. Diane never tried to absolve herself. Never made excuses. just worked quietly and consistently, helping women escape the kind of men she'd raised. On the 15th anniversary of leaving Bennett, I visited Natalie's grave again. Helen met me there. She was 82 now, moving slower, but her mind was sharp. "Thank you for remembering her," Helen said. "I never forget. She's why I do this work. She'd be proud of you, of all you've accomplished. I wish she could have accomplished it herself. So do I. Every day." We stood in silence. Rain started to fall. Again, it always seemed to rain at Natalie's grave. "Do you think she's at peace?" I asked. "I hope so, but I'll never be at peace. That's my burden." "Mine too." Helen took my hand. "But we keep going, keep helping, keep making sure her death meant something. Always." Bennett tried for parole again at year 15. Helen was too frail to attend the hearing, but Vanessa and I were there. This time Bennett had a prepared statement, talked about rehabilitation and remorse, about the therapy he'd done in prison, about how he'd changed. The board asked specific questions, about Natalie, about Vanessa, about me. Bennett gave practiced answers, said all the right things, but his eyes were cold, empty. The same eyes I'd seen in our bedroom, in Diane's kitchen, in the courtroom. "He's lying," I told the board. "He's learned what to say, but he hasn't changed. He's still the same man who beat 3 women, who drove one to suicide." The board deliberated for 3 hours, came back with their decision. Parole denied again. Vanessa cried with relief. "I just felt tired." "How many more times?" she asked. "How many more hearings?" "Until he's served his full sentence. 3 more years, then he's out whether we like it or not." "I'm scared." "Me too, but we'll be ready." We spent the next 3 years preparing, renewed restraining orders, set up security systems, connected with police, made sure Bennett would have watchers when he got out. Diane used her legal connections, made sure parole officers knew Bennett's history, made sure he'd have strict conditions. When Bennett was finally released, he moved to a halfway house in Ohio, couldn't leave the state, had to check in daily, couldn't contact any of his victims. He got a job at a warehouse, kept his head down, followed the rules. But I tracked him, through public records, through mutual acquaintances, through Diane's connections. "Let it go," Judith told me. "He's not your problem anymore. He'll always be my problem, until one of us is dead." A year after his release, Bennett met someone new. Her name was Iris. She was young, naive, worked at the coffee shop near his halfway house. I found her on social media, watched her post photos with Bennett, smiling, happy, in love. My stomach turned. I debated for weeks. Should I warn her? Tell her what he was? Risk violating the restraining order? Finally, I created a fake profile, sent her a message, included links to news articles about Bennett's conviction, about Natalie's death, about the pattern. She blocked me immediately. 3 months later, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. "Is this Chloe?" "Yes." "Who is this?" "My name is Iris. I think you tried to warn me about Bennett." My heart stopped. "Are you okay?" "I am now. I left last night." "What happened?" "He hit me. First time. Told me I was overreacting, that I deserved it, that I was lucky he even stayed with me." Her voice shook. "Then I remembered your message. Looked up the articles. Realized everything was true." "Where are you now?" "My mom's house. 2 states away." "Good. Stay there. File a police report. He's on parole. Assault could send him back." "I'm scared." "I know, but you did the right thing. You left after the first time. That's hard." Iris did file a report. Bennett was arrested for parole violation, sent back to prison for another 5 years. When I heard, I called Diane. "Did you know about Iris?" "I suspected. I've been watching him too." "Why didn't you warn her?" "I tried. She didn't believe me. Sometimes people have to learn for themselves." Natalie learned, and it killed her. "I know, but I can't save everyone. Neither can you. Sometimes all we can do is be there when they're ready." Iris moved to Oregon, took a job at Natalie's house, wanted to help other women avoid her mistake. "I was lucky," she told me. "I got out after 1 hit. Some women don't. You weren't lucky. You were smart. You listened to your instincts." She worked at the shelter for 3 years, then went back to school, became a social worker, specialized in domestic violence. "You inspired me," she said, "showed me I could turn my trauma into purpose." That's what Natalie did for me. 20 years after leaving Bennett, I published a second book, Natalie's Legacy: How One Woman's Death Changed Everything. It was part memoir, part handbook, stories from survivors mixed with practical advice, how to recognize abuse, how to leave safely, how to rebuild. Helen wrote the foreword. She was 92, frail but determined. "My daughter's death was not in vain," she wrote. "Through Chloe's courage and dedication, Natalie's suffering has saved countless lives. That is her legacy. That is what I cling to in my darkest moments." Helen died 6 months after the book came out, peacefully, in her sleep. At her funeral, I gave the eulogy, talked about her strength, her love for Natalie, her dedication to making sure others didn't suffer the same loss. "Helen never stopped fighting for her daughter," I said. "Never stopped demanding justice. Never stopped supporting survivors. She was the mother every victim deserves, the advocate every woman needs, the proof that love doesn't end with death." After the funeral, Diane approached me. She was 78 now, gray hair completely white, face lined with age and guilt. "Thank you for honoring Helen. She deserved it. So did Natalie. And I failed her." "You did, but you spent 20 years trying to make it right. That has to count for something. Does it? Ask the 2,000 women who've passed through Natalie's house. Ask the hundreds who left because I told them my story. Ask Iris. Ask all the women who are alive because you finally chose to act." Diane cried. I let her. When she composed herself, she said, "I'm dying. Pancreatic cancer. 3 months, maybe 6. I'm sorry. I'm not. I'm tired. and I'm ready. She looked at me. But I need to know. Do you forgive me? I thought for a long moment. About Natalie. About the years of silence. About the damage done. No, I said honestly. I don't. What you did was unforgivable. You chose your son over innocent women. Over your own conscience. People died because of that choice. Diane nodded. Expected this. But, I continued, I understand why you did it. And I respect that you finally changed. You can't undo the past. Can't bring Natalie back. But you've saved lives since. That matters. It doesn't erase what you did, but it matters. Thank you for your honesty. It's all I have to give you. Diane died 4 months later. She left her entire estate to Natalie's house. $3 million. Bennett didn't attend her funeral. Still in prison. Still unrepentant. Gerald's family contested the will, claimed Diane wasn't in her right mind, that I'd manipulated her. But Diane had prepared for this. Had lawyers, had documentation, had letters explaining exactly why she'd made this choice. The will stood. We used the money to expand Natalie's house, added 2 more buildings, increased our capacity to 300 women, hired more counselors, more lawyers, more support staff. We named the new wing the Helen Memorial Building. Felt right. Helen and Diane, together in death, saving lives they couldn't save in life. Vanessa became the executive director. I stepped back into an advisory role, traveled, spoke, wrote, but the day-to-day was hers now. You've done enough, she told me. Take care of yourself for once. So I did. Bought a house on the coast, adopted a dog, started painting, went to therapy, let myself heal, but I never stopped tracking Bennett, never stopped watching. He was released again at 65, older, slower, but still himself. This time, he moved to Florida, got a job, kept quiet. I hired a private investigator, had him watched, made sure he wasn't hurting anyone new. For 5 years, Bennett lived quietly, alone, isolated. His past followed him everywhere. Every job, someone would recognize his name. Google him, spread the word. He got fired 8 times in 5 years. Finally, he stopped trying, lived on Social Security. In a run-down apartment, alone. Part of me felt sorry for him, tiny part. The rest remembered Natalie, remembered my own bruises, remembered every woman he'd hurt. On the 30th anniversary of leaving Bennett, I got a call from the investigator. He's dead. How? Heart attack. Died alone in his apartment. No one found him for 3 days. I felt nothing. No relief, no satisfaction, just emptiness. Thanks for letting me know. I called Vanessa, told her. She was quiet. How do you feel? She asked. I don't know. Numb. Me too. I thought I'd feel something, but I don't. Maybe that's the point. He took so much from us. Our fear, our peace, our sense of safety. Maybe the last thing he took was our ability to feel anything about him at all. Bennett had no funeral, no obituary, just disappeared, like he'd never existed. I went to Natalie's grave one last time. She'd been dead 30 years now. Her headstone was weathered, covered in moss. He's gone, I told her. It's over. The wind picked up. Rain started to fall. I'd stopped believing she could hear me years ago, but I still talked to her, still felt her presence, still carried her with me. Thank you, I said, for everything, for inspiring me, for giving me purpose, for making sure your suffering meant something. I left flowers, white roses, like always. Then I went home, to my house on the coast, to my dog, to my quiet life. I was 54 years old. I'd spent more than half my life escaping Bennett's shadow, building something meaningful from trauma, turning pain into purpose. Was it worth it? I don't know. Nothing could bring Natalie back. Nothing could erase the years of abuse. Nothing could restore what Bennett had taken, but I'd helped thousands of women. Vanessa had found happiness. Diane had found redemption, however flawed. Helen had found peace before she died. Iris had found her calling. Maybe that was enough. Maybe that had to be enough. I wrote one final book. After the Monster, Finding Peace When Justice Isn't Enough. It wasn't about Bennett. Wasn't about abuse. It was about healing. About learning to live with trauma. About finding meaning in suffering. About accepting that some scars never fade. Some nightmares never stop. Some wounds never fully heal. But that life goes on anyway. That we keep fighting, keep hoping, keep believing things can be better. The book did well. Resonated with people who'd survived all kinds of trauma. Not just abuse, loss, addiction, illness, war. People who understood that survival wasn't the end of the story. It was just the beginning. I did one final book tour. 50 cities in 6 months. My last hurrah. Then I retired completely. Vanessa threw me a party at Natalie's house. 200 survivors came. Women I'd helped over 3 decades. Their children, their partners, their family. They stood up, one by one, and told their stories. How I'd saved them. How Natalie's house had changed their lives, how they'd found safety and hope and new beginnings. I cried through the entire thing, happy tears, sad tears, grateful tears. At the end, Iris brought out a plaque, bronze, heavy. It read, Natalie's House, founded in memory of Natalie Ann Reeves, built by the strength of survivors, in honor of Chloe, who showed us all that escape is possible, that healing is real, that life after abuse exists. They mounted it above the front door, permanent, lasting. Thank you, I said to everyone, for trusting me, for letting me help, for proving that survival is not just possible, but beautiful. I moved back to Oregon permanently, became a full-time grandmother figure to Vanessa's children, watched them grow up in a house without violence, without fear. One of them, Matilda, came to me when she was 16. I want to be like you when I grow up. What do you mean? I want to help people. Like you helped my mom, like you helped all those women. That's a hard path. You'll hear terrible stories, see horrible things, carry weight that never goes away. I know. But mom says it's worth it, that someone has to do it. I looked at this girl who'd grown up surrounded by survivors, who'd been raised to believe in helping others, who'd never known violence but understood its impact. Then I'll help you. Teach you everything I know. Matilda volunteered at Natalie's house through high school, went to college for social work, came back and joined our staff. She's running the place now. 30 years old, brilliant, compassionate, tough, better than I ever was. I'm 58 now, mostly retired. Still write occasionally, still speak if asked, but my active days are done. I spend my time with my dog, with Vanessa's family, with the ocean. Sometimes I think about Bennett, about how much of my life was defined by him, by escaping him, by healing from him, by helping others escape men like him. Was it wasted? Should I have moved on faster? Let it go? No, because my trauma became my purpose. My suffering became other people's salvation. My story became a roadmap for survival. That's not nothing. That's everything. Last week, I got a letter from a woman named Quinn. She's 22, just left her abusive boyfriend, read all my books, came to Natalie's house. Thank you for showing me it's possible, she wrote. Thank you for not giving up. Thank you for turning your pain into something that saves lives. I'm alive because of you, because of Natalie, because of everyone who came before me and proved that survival is real. I put the letter in a box with hundreds of others, testimonials from women who'd found hope, who'd found strength, who'd found life after. That's my legacy. Not Bennett, not the abuse, not the trauma. The lives saved, the hope restored, the proof that monsters don't win forever. Sometimes they lose. Sometimes justice comes. Sometimes victims become survivors, become advocates, become saviors. And sometimes a mother's guilt becomes a daughter's salvation, becomes 1,000 daughters' salvation. Diane was right. What she did wasn't enough, could never be enough. Natalie was still dead. Years were still stolen. Damage was still done. But it was something. And something is better than nothing. Action is better than silence. Late justice is better than no justice. I think about calling Diane's grave sometimes, telling her I understand now, that I see how hard it was to choose, that I recognize the courage it took however late it came. But I never do, because understanding isn't forgiveness. Recognizing courage isn't absolution. Some things are unforgivable. Some wounds don't heal. Some ghosts don't rest. We just learn to live with them, build something beautiful despite them, prove that even broken things can have purpose. I'm broken. Will always be broken. The nightmares still come. The anxiety still spikes. The flinch reflex still triggers. But I'm also whole, healed in the ways that matter. Strong where I need to be strong. Soft where I can afford to be soft. That's the truth of survival. You're both, forever. Broken and whole. Damaged and powerful. Victim and victor. And that's okay. More than okay. That's human. Today, I walked down to the beach, let my dog run in the waves, watched the sun set over the water, thought about Natalie, about Helen, about Diane, about all the women who'd passed through Natalie's house, about the thousands who'd found safety, the hundreds who'd found healing, the dozens who'd found purpose, about how one woman's death became a movement, how one mother's guilt became a catalyst, how one victim's escape became a blueprint, about how darkness doesn't always win, how silence can break, how change is possible, even when it's hard, even when it's late. Even when it costs everything. The sun disappeared below the horizon. My dog barked at the waves. The ocean kept moving, constant and eternal. And I kept breathing, kept living, kept believing. That survival is not just possible, it's beautiful. That healing is not just hope, it's real. That escape is not just a dream, it's a choice. A choice I made 34 years ago. The best choice of my life. The choice that saved me. And through me, saved thousands more. That's enough. That has to be enough. That is enough. I turned and walked back to my house. My dog followed. The waves kept crashing, the world kept turning, and somewhere, a woman is reading my book, realizing she can leave, gathering courage, taking that first step, because I did, because Natalie's death meant something, because one person's action changed everything. That's the legacy, that's the point, that's why it all mattered, not the abuse, not the trauma, not the years of pain, the survival, the healing, the lives saved. That's what I'll think about when I die, not Bennett's fists, but the women I helped, not Diane's betrayal, but her redemption, not Natalie's death, but her legacy, the good that came from darkness, the light that followed shadow, the hope that survived despair. That's my story. Our story. Every survivor's story. We escape. We heal. We help. We survive. We thrive. We win. Not always. Not easily. Not without cost. But we do. And that changes everything.